Hello. Hello. Good afternoon, boys and girls. Brothers, sisters, and non-binary twisters. Hello, hello. How is everybody? How are we feeling? How are my students doing this afternoon? That's whatever. It's supposed to fade, but it's the old stuff, or it's the stuff I streamed this morning, so I didn't really change it all over. I literally streamed until about like 2 hours ago, got off, made some food, ate that food, and then now we're here. Hello. Hello. Hi JD White. Hi Solophysicist. How are you guys? How's life? How's everything treating you guys, by the way? I know that it has been a heck of a time, pardon my French. By the way, for extra credit, you guys can click on that and retweet it. On vacation? Nice. Is it like a forced vacation thing? Or is it a planned vacation that happened to fall in the middle of all this? Weirdly, some people have been... So I made a complaint. The other day. Not officially. I didn't file a complaint to the offices of Jeremy Esquire via my attorney at law. I didn't do anything like that. But I was talking about it on stream, and my own stream, which... Hi, everybody. My name's Dan, a.k.a. Dan of Taj. This is Dan's Stream of Thought. We should actually just intro it that way. I feel like we're all pretty familiar, but if you're new to this channel, or you're new to this show, because, well, you don't have to be new to this channel to be new to the show. It's a stream about streaming and professionalism and all kinds of things. Here, give me 1 second. Looks like there's a hair on the lens. It's a stream about streaming and streaming and streaming and streaming about streaming and all the streaming and streaming stuff. My name is Dan. This is Dan's Stream of Thought. We're going to be talking today about general privacy. But before, I'd like to just catch up with everybody because I only get to see you guys once a week. And I don't think I saw you last week, right? Right? I saw you guys 2 weeks ago because we did our... We did our stream on engagement, right, with Pods of War and Sir Slaw. That's right. And that was great. That was really cool. I'd like to get them back on specifically, but I'd also like to get more guests on because I think we had a very, very good conversation. But two, this is the only show that actually hurts my voice because I speak the entire time versus me being on my stream or anybody on their own stream. You give and take. You sit there and you make a comment, you listen to a question, you take a second to read it and stuff like that. It's different. But here it's a podcast, right? Which is great, but most podcasts are not solo jobs. And in all honesty, I didn't necessarily mean for this to be a solo job either. It just kind of went off that way because, well, like everything that gets done in my world, it's all off the cuff. But I wanted to talk specifically about... some things that are pretty topical, actually. General privacy is something we've spoken about in the past, but it is not something we've spoken about to the extent of... Now there's a lot more users on Twitch and YouTube and Mixer and Facebook right now because of the fact that there is a global pandemic happening right now. So... Whilst a lot of people have been on this platform, I'd be willing to bet that there's a lot more people coming to this platform and sort of dealing with the fact that there's a need for entertainment right now, right? I mean, I was always under the impression that the Animal Crossing, the Crossing of the Animals, was going to be very popular, but I think to Nintendo's benefit, this pandemic actually made it grow much further than it was going to anyway. Same with Doom. If you looked at Twitch and YouTube content, it was a lot of Animal Crossing, a lot of Doom. That's basically the entire week so far, entire week and a half, or weekend I should say, because it came out like on Friday, right? Yeah, it's been that much. It's just been all over the place. You can look at Twitter and Instagram, and it's legitimately everywhere, and people are loving it, which is great. People should be loving it. I think the biggest turn that I've seen has been that not only it couldn't have come at a better time. We've been dealing with a lot of stressors and a lot of things just happening, and there's a lot of people finding new things, but also people flocking to a sort of like center, and Animal Crossing seems to be that center. Doom is Doom. We're all going to enjoy Doom. You like shooting evil monsters, Martians from Mars, and things from hell and demons and all that stuff. So that's something that I think everybody can kind of get behind. However, it's even more so with something like this. So that sparked an idea of, well, if there's more people that are on this platform, there's more people that are just coming to a light of, hey, I need this entertainment in my life because, well, I can't leave the house. I can't necessarily go hang out with my friends. It's all going to be video games and internet TV and stuff like that, and just TV in general, movies and whatnot. And I think that because of that, there's a good conversation we can have about privacy and about security. General privacy and security both very much go together in a lot of ways. Your privacy is what keeps you secure, I would say 90% of the time. We've talked about this. In fact, one of the first TwitchCon panels I was ever on was a cybersecurity panel with Maximus Rake and a few others talking about. Maximus Rake he's now in Mixer, but he still is a tech support technician specialist, specializing in cybersecurity. So what he did was he looked into a case after I had been hacked before. So my channel had been taken over by probably some 4chan script kiddies that ran something on a server I was on, and found a bunch of information in my IP address and got into what we think was the router, and found out a few things and just started streaming from my account. It sounds like they probably went through a couple different things and found some even secure passwords. They weren't, that changed my life forever. I got my passwords even more secure because that was pretty dramatic and pretty daunting. But it did show me a few things, and so we talked about that in the panel. Anyway, that was 2016. When was the first TwitchCon? It was the second TwitchCon. Wait, was it the second? Yeah, it must have been the second TwitchCon. The first one in San Diego. I believe that was 16, right? Because this is 20. Last year was 19. Was the second San Diego, and then you had Long Beach, which was 18, and then you had San Jose, or maybe it was the other. It was San Jose then Long Beach, which was 17, and then San Diego, which was 16, right? Yeah, 2016. So yeah, that we talked about that a long time ago. Nothing has happened since, but because we've taken certain steps. So let's start off with what it means to be secure. I mean, we talked about this. What does it mean to be secure? Well, the very base definition is to not be compromised of being hurt, either emotionally, financially, physically, any other ways. Brand wise, like you can not only hurt yourself financially and physically and emotionally, but lots of things can come with your business that don't necessarily hit those aspects. Like, how do I hurt my brand? Well, I do stuff that is outside of my brand. So like having your Twitter account hacked may not fully hurt your brand, but it may to some people who don't pay close attention to it. Like, I believe, man, Ninja comes up a lot of this stream, but I believe Ninja's account was hacked out at some point, and they posted nothing that really hurt his brand, really, because it was pretty obvious that he was that it wasn't him doing the tweets, which again, that's its own issue. I'd be willing to bet because of how many people handle his account that there was a slip through the cracks in security. It doesn't matter. That's neither here nor there because, well, that comes down to the more people that have access to an account, the more likely it is to be compromised. So something like that is going to happen, and one thing you'll have to understand is to be compromised in the cyber world right now is a matter of when and not if. But back to the definition of what is secure, and that's, as much as you can prevent things that are not going to hurt you, right? Things that are not going to hurt you emotionally or financially or brand or whatever it might be. But yeah, something like that can very much hurt that. So if somebody were to take over an account and actually start tweeting with the voice that is actually similar to the person that owns that account, and start saying things that are not necessarily of that brand, like, I don't know, just saying something like, I hate when people say it's just a game because that's weak. Oh wait, no, that's actually what he said. But the point is, he hurts his own brand. We're not going to get into that. Or we're going to get into the fact that if somebody does say something like that from a person that is, kind and nice and pays attention to their own brand, it might actually hurt. But that's secure, So let's do our best to keep that at the utmost protected. In no matter and no means is there something that necessarily says you are 100% secure. We need to understand that. We need to accept that. But you can get as close to that 100% as you possibly can. And hopefully today we were able to talk about some things that might be able to do that. If you guys have any questions, as always, you can put them in chat. We will do that. If you're listening to this later, the chat is on twitch.tv/StreamerSquare. We're live at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on Twitch every Tuesday. So come hang out with us. So let's talk about it. What are some steps? Does anybody in chat have any suggestions? Some steps you can take to be secure. One thing that I think a lot of people have not done, but basically have talked about doing, or at least heard it before. I truly, sadly, I do think this is a thing that doesn't happen a lot. Is talking to your local police station. Not many people do that. I'm going to say this right at the top because it's extremely important, and I think a lot of people get lazy on it. Personally, I've moved, and there's been several times where I've moved and I haven't done it for a while. Glad to say that I think we're okay now. I think everybody knows what's going on. But talk to your local police station. Go in personally and be like, "Oh, this is what I do. I'm an internet personality." Like, you don't have to talk about your size or anything. They may ask, how many viewers do you have? How many followers do you have? They might want that information. Give them that information. Tell them it's subject to change in the future, and tell them that there's so many things that might be happening. And be clear with the fact that if you receive a call about something that is life-threatening or something that is happening, they're never gonna not do their job, right? They will still come to your house if somebody calls in a bomb threat or says that you are holding, somebody gunpoint and something like that. They will still come over. However, knowing this information that something like this is prone to happen, they won't come in ready to shoot you in the head, right? And try to take you out. Because remember, police are not meant to wound when they shoot. If they discharge their weapon, it is to kill and only to kill. Because it is to the life threat of somebody within the vicinity. So hopefully they'll come in, and they may come in aggressively, but at least they'll know something is going on. They know that there's a possibility that there's not actually anything happening in there. So while they will be guarded, they may not be as aggressive, or at least you may not be unknowingly or unwarrantedly hurt or harmed or, God forbid, killed. We don't want that. So I'm going to say that right at the top. That's one of the most important things. A lot of people don't do it. And I'd be willing to bet that 99% of people who live stream do not do this. And that's a big number. It's the same thing with how many people are not staying indoors right now during during this global quarantine and attempting to get rid of this virus that is killing thousands. Stop saying you're going to do it and just do it, okay? Okay? Stop saying you're going to do it and just do it. There's a lot of people who don't know, and that's exactly why we're doing this show. There's a lot of people that don't know, and it's exactly why we're doing this show. So, do it, okay? Swatting ends a lot of pet deaths, yeah. If they hear a dog barking and the dog is being protective as dogs are meant to do, that could mean the end of your dog, unfortunately. Because, well, please take that seriously. They do. They're not going to be attacked by a dog when they think it's a drug dealer and the dog has been taught to just kill anything that pops in the house, when you actually just taught your dog to at least be alert, alert your dog and stuff like that somebody's there, alert you guys and whatever. Yeah, you don't want that to happen. It's very sad, but it is possible. So that's not saying not train your dog to alert you when somebody's trying to get into your house, but it is to say that at least they know that there's something there that may not be as they've heard through the phone call. Straight up sucks, but they won't let the dog get in their way. Exactly. No, exactly. It's not their fault. It's not the law enforcement's fault that something like that happened, because for all they know, especially if you don't tell them, is there are lives at danger. There are lives at stake. And including theirs, Obviously, a lot of police officers would put their life down before civilians, but not if they think that civilian is a criminal or something that that civilian is somebody putting somebody else's life in danger. So yeah, so just talk to them, and you don't have to talk about a lot of these things. Just let them know what's going on and why somebody like you may be prone to having somebody pull a prank on you like that, or whatever it might be. So everybody that I've talked to, every police station I've been into, which has been several, have been very much like on the ball. They're like, okay, we understand. Cool. Just, can you give us your screen name? Can you give us your screen name, your address, and how, well, they've asked once, how likely do you think it is that somebody would do this? But that part was probably irrelevant. But they ask for a bunch of information. How many viewers do you normally have? What's your followership? Stuff like that, because they tend to assess things like that too. So yeah, I'm getting to that, Wes. That's actually a good point. So Wes is talking about Googling yourself. I'll tell you right now that there are a few things that you can do even further than just Googling yourself. Yes, Google yourself, try to find your name, stuff like that. Obviously, Google does put together profiles when you search, so don't do it too often, especially all your sensitive information. Don't do that super often. Do it, once every 6 months or something like that to make sure that it's not popping up somewhere. But look very specifically at the white pages. The white pages are very, 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 very big. The white pages are something that almost everybody is listed in, and their home address and phone number and all that stuff. I thankfully have a name, a first and last name, that is extremely popular in California and even more popular in Southern California. So thankfully, it's very hard to find me, but even so, we have gone through the efforts, me and my main mod Gamertech, who is very much about security as well. We've gone through and made sure to remove it, because the reason I want you to go look at your white pages is because you can ask them to remove it, especially if you can show that you have an audience that, or you stream online or whatever it might be, same as the police station. You explain to them, this is what's going on. I would like my name and information removed from the white pages, because now some lawyers, there's probably one in the other room, I don't know who she is, whatever, may correct me in this, but I believe there is I don't know if it's a state statute or if it's a federal statute in the United States that allows, I know that there's some in the EU and there's some in Australia that gives you the right to remove any personal information from a public database. I don't know if that's a corporation type thing or what that might be. I believe if it's yellow or white pages, that is a corporation anyway. But I believe that you have the right to remove any personal information from anything. Obviously, not the government, because they need to know these things. And now they're going even further with this, by the way. I believe that they're trying to pass something right now here in the United States that says anything that is streamed on the internet or put on to the internet is under the availability for the government to be able to monitor it. Very much like, if you remember, during the Bush administration, the Patriot Act, meaning phone tapping and access to information over the phone or whatever it might be. If something is suspicious, the government has full right to just listen in. People thought that that was being able to tap into cameras, which I believe people were doing in the government, but that's not provable, and I believe that needed a warrant, but again, there's nothing to say that that wasn't taken into whatever consideration. But now they're trying to pass something that says there is absolutely no reason, there's like no need for reasonable cause to be able to do these things. So that's just how it is right now. But the bigger thing is, hey Katie,
yes.
Is there a statute or anything that says, what is the thing that says you have the right to remove any personal information from a public database?
I don't know if we have one, but it's the right to be forgotten.
The right before, but we have something similar to that, don't we? The right to be forgotten was, yeah, that's what I was thinking of the EU. Huh?
Children do under COPA.
Children do under COPA, sure.
I don't think we do.
From any corporation, though? What is that thing that, you know, now that they require you to agree to having websites save your cookies and stuff like that? What was that under? Yeah, if you go to websites now, they say, hey, this information or all the information based on what you put in here is now being saved or whatever. Do you agree to this? Whatever it might be. That was an act that was from a couple years ago.
Yeah, you're right.
But that has a lot to do with they want you to know that this information is being taken because it was being secretive before. I don't know if that changes how much you can access it or how much you have control over it. But the big thing is, especially if you're in the EU, pay attention to it. Look it up. Look up your name. Look at who you are. I don't know how much. See, I'm not a Google guru, so I can't suggest you putting in sensitive information like your social security number or your address or phone number or something like that, because I don't know how secure you inputting those digits are. It's very possible that by putting that in, that compromises you even further. But again, I don't know these things. This is something you may have to. I'll try to get information for you, probably through like Gamertech or something like that. But there's a lot of things that once it's added, people tend to pay attention to it. And Google likes to database everything. Google likes to pay attention to everything. So this is a side note, and this is the big way why I know how this happens. If you Google a domain name that you may want to purchase, the odds are, if you don't buy it right then and there, it will be purchased and sold to you for an even higher price. That happens all the time. So, while that has nothing to do with privacy, I would say, if you need to buy a domain, you better be ready to buy it when you look up to see if it's available, because there will be bots that will purchase those things. Now, with that being said, that leads me to believe that there are also bots that read social security numbers and try to tie those to strings based on which computer and which IP address are actually accessing those things, and then you can triangulate who does what. The Privacy Act of 1974, as amended through 2019. That's it. Can we read it? hhs.gov. What's that?
I don't know, but the DOJ website is down right now. So.
The DOJ is down. Awesome.
The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
There we go. That's a good website anyway. The Privacy Act protects records about individuals retrieved by personal identifiers such as name, social security number, or identifying number or symbol. An individual has rights under the Privacy Act to seek access to and request correction if applicable, or an accounting of disclosures of any such records maintained about him or her. That sounds like if somebody wants to find you, this is your right to make sure that they really know how to find you. Seems weird. Prohibits disclosure of such records without prior written consent of individuals to whom records pertain, unless one of 12 disclosure expectations enumerated in subsection B of the Act applies. So, I'm curious as to when you say okay to a website tracking your cookies, are you allowing them to have that information?
Yes.
I always exit out of it, and I'm still able to use the website, so I guess that's maybe what you should be doing. Because I don't hit OK. They give you an OK, and then I just exit out of it.
I honestly don't even know if the website tracks whether or not you exited out of it or accepted it.
Let's see, what's a good website to go to? Let's try this. So, new private website. I wonder if, let's go to, how about New York Times? I feel like that's one of them. NewYorkTimes.com. No, nothing's showing up here. CNN? Trump is going to address the COVID, so that might be why they may be updating it. We're talking about the Privacy Act? That was updated last year, wasn't it?
No, Trump is literally right now addressing COVID, so that might be why the Department of Justice website is down.
Oh, that. Chat, why can't I find this? I get it on Instagram all the time. It's not gonna be on Facebook, because Facebook just doesn't even ask. They just break the law on purpose. Because they know that they can afford the fees, because they're gonna make more money off of it. We're being sidetracked. Anyway, read those things, be part of that, and Google yourself, because you want to be able to say, hey, this information is not yours and I never agreed to it, so please take it down. Because whether or not somebody thinks that they can have it, you asking them nicely may have them take it down no matter what. But again, that's a bunch of law stuff that I'm unfamiliar with. But again, yes, Wes is right. Definitely look into that stuff. When it comes to Facebook and Twitter, I try to advise not putting any information on Twitter that is personal to you, that will allow somebody to be able to find you. I have the both blessing and curse that my name is public. So I've just gone through the other loops and the holes to get rid of the fact that even if you know my name, you still don't know how to find me. So hopefully that works. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that. Facebook is tough because Facebook actually has your name presented. So only friend people you know it's them. You know, if you use Facebook still. I don't know how many people use Facebook anymore. Create a page so that if people do want to find your Facebook, they find the page and not necessarily you. But again, make sure that that information that controls the page is not too sensitive. But yeah, try not to tie too many things to you. When it comes to Google and Gmail, I would shell out for a domain name. You can get a cheap domain name of whatever.com. Doesn't have to be anything super branded. I have a TV domain name. It's a little bit more expensive. It's like $60 a year. And put things towards that because you can get somebody to secure that further for you. Put it on a server or a place where it's not Google, because Google, as much as they are the biggest name out there as far as, what are they? They're not a service provider. Google is more than a search engine, just conglomerate, right?
I mean, they are, but
They are what?
a conglomerate.
But like, what would you label Google as? You can get a domain name through Streamlabs too. Yeah, that's, I don't know if I trust that necessarily. Not to mention they probably upcharge because they're doing a service too.
No, you want to call them only a search engine, because then they can be a victim of
They already have genericide though.
No, they don't. They've been fighting it really hard. Remember when we saw all those ads in like theaters
For Google? Yeah, but still, like, they've already gone through and accepted that people talk about Googling something.
Well, no, they haven't accepted it.
They haven't corrected it, really.
That's what those ads were doing.
What did the ads say?
I honestly don't remember, but they were like, search it on Google.
That's their protection. So that's like Disney changing their logo every 20 or some odd years so that they can keep that copyright.
Kind of, but genericide has to do with trademark, and it's also a very specific problem. Whereas the Disney copyright thing, it's got copyright, number one, and number two, it's a much more clear and concrete thing to prevent. Whereas genericide is very like, well, if your product is too popular, you're screwed. Like Band-Aids or Kleenex.
Kleenex, yeah. Or Hoover in the UK.
Yeah.
People in the UK talk about hoovering things all the time, and I'm like, I don't think I've ever owned a Hoover. Wait, is the thing in our garage or our closet a Hoover? I don't know. The fact is, yeah, Hoover is very much used just like Kleenex. But anyway, that's beside the point. The bigger point is something. Go find a place that directly sells you a domain. It's always the best way to do it. It's not hard. They give you all the information right there. You may want to get somebody to build you a website. If you really, really, really don't know what you're doing and don't want to find somebody, Squarespace is a great example. You do pay like $9 a month monthly for something small, but they will set you up with something very easy. This is not sponsored by any means. In fact, I haven't liked a lot of things that Squarespace has done, but I did use Squarespace for a while and it was easy to use. So there's that. Not an ad. It's not an ad. They're not paying me. You're currently under my coffee table. That's how I know you don't know where I live. Thermal Turnip thinks we have a coffee table. We do? I thought we got rid of it. We don't have a coffee table. It's also a cat screen. No, that's not a coffee table. It's an end table. And I don't think Thermal Turnip can fit into that.
We use it like a coffee table, okay?
Okay. It's got a tabletop on it. It's this big. It's not a coffee table, I promise. But that's one of those things. Legit. That is one of those things that you have to pay attention to. All these privacy acts, all these things that happen. You don't have to know them, right? This is for the layman, right? You don't have to know these things. You don't have to know every little bit and piece about them. But if something comes out, like with all the people that were sending out those emails last year, when this whole thing started, the Privacy Act, pay attention to why they're doing it, right? You don't have to read every email that gets sent to you, but pay attention to why they're doing it, because that affects your privacy, and that's important. That affects your privacy. And if it's something that affects you personally, you should know about it, right? You don't have to know every little detail because you're not going to have to fight it in court. It's also why you hire a lawyer, so that they know those things. And that way, you at least know a little bit about what you should and shouldn't be doing on the internet. That's a big thing. That's a big thing that I think a lot of people miss. It's like, oh, I didn't know that this could have been a problem, right? It's not that I didn't know that I did this very specific thing and that turned into this, which turned into that. That's understandable. That's going to happen because you have no control over that. But if something as blatant as I said okay to this message down at the bottom that said they can have all my information, well, they make it as clear as day. They don't make it fine print, so it may get you in trouble at some point. I'm a very small turnip. I can fit. It's very, very tiny. I promise you, Thermal Turnip. It's very tiny. I couldn't fit more than half my leg under there. Okay. Another piece I want to talk about is how you talk on stream. This is where we're going to get into professionalism. I also want to talk about when people ask you things. Very forward. And pressure you sort of into answering, because we have a lot of charismatic people that are on this platform and attempt to take advantage of things and people, especially in this world. Not only because information is power, but because they know that a lot of gamers are very susceptible to just answering the question because out of nervousness, if they have that information, it's almost like a pride thing to a lot of people that are nervous in a lot of ways. It's like, oh, I can answer this question. I'm not nervous about it. I know the answer. I can actually just say the answer. And then they say it and they're like, oh, but I didn't think about what they were trying to do. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. What?
You said people ask you questions.
Oh, yeah. No, that's a great example. What is your birthday, Dan? I want to send you a present. Right. If you don't want people to know your birthday, that is very much a question to be aware of. There's fluff around it. There's a buildup around it and says, this is something that seems harmless because of the second question that came up. So I can answer it. It's not a big deal. It's not a problem. But your birthday is actually very useful information for a lot of people. They may need to get into an account of yours, and the birthday is one of the easiest things to do. Most banks ask you what your birthday is. Although banks are pretty good at security now, for the most part. But most things that have some sort of sensitive information, they ask about your birthday to make sure it's you. And if somebody figures out your birthday, well, there you go. You also have a lot of these things. Here's the better example. Not only that, because Katie does bring up a question brings up something that does happen pretty often. My favorite thing is when people ask on Twitter, hey, what's your stripper name? It's your birth month and your birth date. That's your stripper name. And then you've just willingly given out so much information about yourself, right? I don't know why I thought of stripper name. I'm sure there's other better examples out there, but I thought of stripper name. Because that's how it used to be when we were kids. It's like, oh, it's the street you live on and the color of your dad's car. It's like, that's sensitive information too, right? If they see the color of your dad's car in the driveway, they know your dad is there and they know which street you're on, so they can find exactly where you live. Or if your dad's home, they can tell exactly which house without even asking the address. They just need to know this thing. It's this information that is seemingly harmless to let out, but this is information that specifically on the internet, and not just on Facebook when you're talking to your friends, but specifically when you're a live streamer and people actually want to maybe borrow some of your fame, right? Even if you have 5 viewers, hey, watch, I'm gonna make these 5 viewers be shocked because I'm gonna find out exactly where this person lives and I'm going to knock on their door or something like that. That's their 5 seconds of fame or whatever it might be. That's important to some people, and that will definitely get there. Your stripper name is your first pet plus your birthday plus your mother's maiden name. Yep, that's the one. The mother's maiden name. Thankfully, I think a lot of security questions have moved away from mother's maiden name, but that tends to happen a lot more too. What article? Article grades personal boundaries and parasocial relationships by Salty Sparks. Oh, there you go. There you go. That's a good one. All my security questions are 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm smart and don't put 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, I put 1, 2, 3, 5. That's how I get them. That's how I get them.
Oh my god.
Fancy Candy Johnson. Oh, goodness gracious. Wait, your pet's name was Fancy?
His birthday is Candy.
Birthday's Candy. But yeah, this is a great article. It's a fantastic article. Fantastic article. Yeah, definitely. I answer random questions with random names like pets. Pet's name is R3, like red. I mean, because like here's the thing. No matter how how much people want to get information, you have to ask yourself, how important is this for me to get the answer to, you know? Do I really need to play this game? Do I really need to give out sensitive information? Yeah, you can sit there and say, Dano, you're no fun. You don't like to have any fun. Why can't you just let people have fun? You know why. You know what? Street I grew up on, ice cream sundae. They say that's the way to do it. Yeah, as long as, I mean, it doesn't matter, right? The security question doesn't matter. They don't care what you put in there. They just give you a question so that you'll remember the answer. And if it's the truth, it's easy to remember. But if you know, like, I know I know my secret answer to this that may not be true and may not be understood unless you tell people in a Twitch chat. to get those things going. What password manager do I use? Well, that's a question I'm not going to answer. Hi Blicken, what's up, buddy? We've got 3 lawyers in this heezy. But there are a lot of good ones out there. I wouldn't ever trust any browser password saver. I don't know why. I don't really have any background information for that, but I just wouldn't. I know there's a few of them. There's like SafeLock. There's... Here, let me Google a bunch, and I'll tell you which ones I've heard of. Password managers. Zoho, never heard of. Dashlane, I've heard of. I don't know if that's any good. Keeper, I believe, is pretty good. LastPass, I believe, is pretty good. 1Password, I've never heard of. RoboForm, also never heard of. Gamertech has given me a couple of good ones. Bitwarden, I've heard of. I've heard that's okay. I don't know if that's great. I've heard it's okay, though. Log me once, I wouldn't use them like that. Anything that has single sign-on is usually a problem. Password Boss, I believe, is pretty good. But the biggest thing is when you use a password manager, and I'm not saying not to. When you use a password manager, all somebody needs to do is be able to hack that, and they've got access to all those things, which is why you don't tell people which password manager you use. But the coolest thing about password managers and what they do is they generate secure passwords. They generate passwords that you don't even remember, right? The ones that you wouldn't even be able to figure out. They're secure. They're somewhat encrypted. They have stuff like that to where they're going to have everything in there that you need. Obviously, it's up to whatever website you're using to be able to secure that password for you so that nobody finds it, but at least it won't be taken over from your end, right? KeyPass? I've never heard of that one. Well, actually, no, maybe I have heard of that one. I let Google Chrome remember so many passwords because it's too convenient. It is very convenient, but I'll tell you right now, a lot of these password managers will have Google Chrome or Firefox extensions to where they will also do the same thing that your Google Chrome or Firefox password manager will take care of. So, take those things. Dashlane I've heard about in a good way. Okay, good. Cool. Good. Yeah, use one for a while and see if you like it. See how it goes. But yeah, there's a lot of things that go into security that a lot of people don't necessarily pay attention to or care about. That's the thing too. I think there's a lot of people that take being secure for granted because it hasn't happened to them yet. They don't finish that sentence most of the time. It's like, oh, I've never been hacked yet. I have not been hacked yet. About 2FAX. Yeah, that was something that came up earlier. Two-factor authentication. Anything that has it, you should be using. Obviously, there are some that are bad. There's a lot of first-party website or first-party two-factor authentications that are broken and are often broken into. So be careful of those. Use something like Authy or I think Google has one. Or There's several others, but using two-factor authentication is always good, because whether or not somebody can hack it, at least you know when somebody's accessing something most of the time. Obviously, if they go through very deep depth things to where you can't see that anymore, that's a problem. But most of the time, that's not how it goes. So I know I've been talking about scary stuff a lot. Let me ease your mind just a tiny bit. If hacking you is not easy, this is where most of it comes in, and this is why this is going to be important for all these things to be taken care of. If hacking you is not easy, they usually won't go too much farther with it, because there's somebody out there that is just as easy. You can watch Kit Boga all day, and you'll be able to see a lot of what's going on there. He doesn't make it easy for people, so they often get frustrated and just go away. They often just hang up. They're like, this isn't worth my time. I need to go. Same thing comes with a lot of hacking for target accounts, for whatever. That's why they go through, if they're going to go through a major effort, they go through the effort of hacking the first party rather than the other parties outside of it. So a big thing is make it so that you may not be able to make yourself unhackable, right? That's very difficult, but make it so it's difficult. At least give people a challenge, because if people have a challenge, they often won't go very far with it, because like I said, there are other easier fish out there. So make it difficult, at least in some way, shape, or form. Make it a challenge, because it will help a lot. Practice good privacy hygiene. Yes, keep yourself clean, as clean as you can. Of course, Blaken. Of course, this is what we do here. Unless you piss off someone who's super serious and skilled, some basic precautions could be all you need. Well, that's the thing too, is that's a very rare circumstance. Obviously, this goes not just to streamers, but it goes to mods, which a lot of people may or may not realize. I guarantee, actually, I'd be willing to bet that, I know we've mentioned him a few times, but Gamertech is probably a bigger target than me in my own stream. He tends to be the guy that kind of brings it on. He's like, yeah, try to hack me. See if you can. He's probably harder to hack than I am, but I don't provoke people like he does, I think. So with that being said, mods are very susceptible as well. Same with other longtime community members in a community. If a community member has been there for a long time and people know them, and people like, maybe somebody's jealous of how popular they might be in said community, remember that you could be a target. But it's not hard to keep yourself a little bit secure. Again, password managers, or specifically password managers, are for convenience. It's more about being able to encrypt and then save said passwords, because when you encrypt the passwords, you don't need to remember them because it's also saving them, but it makes it harder to hack, right? And please, no matter what, even if you don't want to have encrypted passwords because you want to remember them, don't use the same password more than once. Please. And if you do, make sure they're completely different things. Like, don't have two different banks and then use the same password for those and go, these are my bank passwords. This is my bank password. Panda Penguin 0700 is my bank passwords, and turkey cheese and cheddar are my social media passwords. It's like, no, that is the opposite thing to do if you're going to do that, which I don't suggest, but that would be the opposite thing to do, because if somebody wants to hack one thing, they want to hack all the other things in that same category, right? Hi Steez, what's up, dude? I like to tell people, send me my IP address, you coward. Yep, that's always good. Do you guys use VPN for non-work related browsing? I don't, personally, because I have a pretty deep firewall. Yeah, I said it. But that is not a bad idea either. VPNs tend to give you another layer of anonymity to people that are searching for your IP address. So what a VPN is actually, let's look up the actual definition. VPN, virtual private network, which specifically is talking about the fact that you are creating a network that doesn't necessarily exist to anybody except for yourself. A network meaning multiple devices connected to each other. That's all a network means. A network in our house is our computers, right? They all connect to a central location through a firewall, through a router, through all that stuff. but it extends something further than just being at your home. It puts you somewhere, right? You don't really even know yourself where you are in your network. It would put you somewhere that is not yet your home. Often, well, when it's a little crass, but when Pornhub announced that they were giving all citizens of Italy free Pornhub Premium because of their lockdown, there are several VPN companies that reported a large spike in people using their service to pretend they were in Italy. So yeah, that happens. But the point is that's to show that what kind of access you have to things. VPNs take you somewhere that is not where you live. So if you're browsing something that may be that you don't trust necessarily, or you don't know what's going on, and you may need to look at something that maybe, I don't know, somebody is watching. Maybe you want to go to 4chan for whatever reason. Maybe you want to click on a link that you don't know of for whatever reason. You could do that on a VPN. I mean, it's trackable still, but it's another layer of difficulty for somebody to be able to say, hey, I think this person's in Australia, when it's like, no. My VPN says that I'm in Australia, but actually and then you give away your position, then you just basically ruined that. But yeah, there's places like NordVPN who sponsor a lot of streamers and YouTubers. I don't know how good they are. Usually if somebody sponsors a bunch of content creators, it sort of gives me the heebie-jeebies, but that tends to be a thing. VPNs are good for a lot of reasons. Again, we'll refer back to Kit Boga because he's very good at security. He has to be, because basically his life and his family's life depend on it. He uses a virtual console, which is basically it's taking VPN to the next level. Not only is he using a VPN, but he's also using a computer that's not necessarily a real computer. It's on a server somewhere, and he's accessing it through his computer. So it's like if somebody were to track down his IP address, they would get into a computer that doesn't actually exist, so they can't really find where it's coming from. But yeah, you mentioned having a good firewall. Care to expound? Recommend any particular hardware for privacy purposes? No. I don't have any recommendations, but I would recommend getting a physical firewall if you have the cash and are really worried about your stuff. Personally, having a lawyer in the house and having a streamer in the house, it felt like a good investment to get into something that was there. But I was sent a suggestion from Gamertech. Getting something with a name brand that people can trust. That's really my suggestion. I wouldn't get anything that you've heard of off of like CNET. Let's see. Let's go physical. Most people don't use physical firewalls anymore. I've had this firewall actually for years. This is actually pretty old, but it has done its job. Netgear does a really good one. Plus, depending on the router you get, I would recommend not getting or not using the router that the ISP gives you, because odds are that if you're using that, anybody who hacks them basically will lead them straight to you as well. Using your own personal piece, like I like the Nighthawk is very nice. There's a few others that are really nice that you can use and actually be okay with. But yeah, I don't think they're necessary for a lot of households anymore because of how a lot of software firewalls work. I will recommend though using ESET, ESET, which I believe is a German product, but there is a North American office here in San Diego. ESET. I pay about $100 a year for 3 devices. So my streaming PC, my gaming PC, and my laptop. They're very good. And I take it back. I use it on my phone as well. ESET is very good for Android as well. They will protect everything you possibly can. They actually report to me when I input my password incorrectly. They'll report there's possible malpractice or whatever happening with your. Please don't turn off my computer. Thank you. There's possibly something going on with your phone. Would you like to report it? And then we can lock it down and stuff like that. They're very good at that stuff, so I would check that out. They have antivirus, and they also have data protection as well, so they'll back up stuff for you too. So taking a look at that and making sure that nobody is able to get in. Everything you download, they scan, and they're very good at not taking up a bunch of resources on your PC, which is what a lot of antiviruses do, like Norton and McAfee and stuff like that. Those are all garbage. I would go with Windows Defender before I would go with any of those companies, because those are basically spyware themselves. But I would definitely go with ESET. A program on a computer that to all outside sources is a real working physical computer, virtual machine, and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of antivirus and firewalls. Yes. Taking a little bit, like I said, $100. I spend $100 a year. I would say for the security of all my information and data on my PCs, that's worth it. That's more than worth it. I should talk to ESET actually, because I feel like them sponsoring streamers would be extremely important. I've actually thought about it and mentioned it, but it seems very difficult to get in contact with them. But yeah, they're very good, and I do trust them, so I'll figure out how that works. Why have they not done this? Didn't shut up. It's a big idea. I've talked about it. I've mentioned it. I don't know. I wish. Yeah, we should talk to them. I'll send a note to OPG and see what they think. Show them this is a VOD? Yeah, of course. Of course. I think it's a great idea. It all comes down to money, though. But I honestly think that they can get set up with some big streamers and be like, yo, I use ESET. See, the problem is, I guess, when you announce stuff like that, you do kind of welcome somebody to try to break it. Granted, I think they're a company that does have hackathons and hack contests, to where if you can hack it, then we give you like a certain amount of money and stuff like that. A password manager too? Yeah. I believe LastPass has sponsored people before. I think they do advertisements, but I don't know how and where. I think I've seen it before. But yeah, there's definitely people that would be totally up for having sponsorships with things like ESET and stuff like that. I think there's personally there's not enough of things like that come across the board. I personally only see the things that are trying to actually take advantage of people, when it's like, dude, you can get so much free advertisement from people who actually their entire job is on the internet, and it goes to having an audience full of people they can't necessarily trust. I feel like it's the perfect market, but there's got to be something there that I'm just missing. LastPass does, yeah. I figured so. Yeah, maybe we'll reach out to them and see if they can do something like that on here. Maybe there's somebody out there who would love to jump on the show with me. I don't know. There's always a possibility. Anything is possible for stuff like that. But yeah, as far as hardware firewalls go, to get back to that, they're not necessarily worth it anymore. We have one because we've had one for a long time, and it's just always worked. Unfortunately, there's so much software going on within that hardware that sometimes it does slow down your connection, but people have been okay with that for a long time, because like, oh, I'm being protected, and it's like, sometimes you're not. Even a lot of hardware firewalls are often hackable anyway. This one has just been really good to us, so. And they blow it? Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll check it out. We'll talk to some people. I don't know. People are weird when it comes to spending money on stuff like that they don't necessarily understand, because as much as a lot of these companies understand security and cybersecurity and stuff like that, they don't necessarily understand the streaming world and the gaming world, because in a lot of ways that hasn't necessarily been a huge concern to a lot of them. I don't know what game companies use to protect their own servers, but I'd be curious if that's part of that world. I've worked with developers and publishers a lot, even before streaming, but I've never actually been in that part. There's like a security part. In fact, I have a subscriber that used to work for a game company in the security office, or in the, not the security office, but in the security section for securing games. I'd be curious to see what kind of info that he has. And the failures of capitalism, yeah, well, that's a thing. Who else got some tips? I like KeyPass. You're the second person bringing that up. I will have to look into that. I've never heard of KeyPass. Never heard of KeyPass. But we'll have to look that up. Written in C# and C++. Interesting. Interesting. Open source manager. Open source is always actually pretty good. Not always, I shouldn't say. Open source is good if they have good people working on it. But I mean, OBS is open, obviously, and that's been pretty good. There's a lot of things that are nice. As far as I understand, there's a couple email. There's a couple email. What are they called? Services, I guess, that are decently safe. I know that. What is it called? I think it's called Proton Mail. Proton Mail is a fully encrypted email service. So all emails that are sent there are fully encrypted, which means they're not unhackable, but they're they're much more difficult to be hacked. So it's been suggested that if you're going to receive emails from your bank, or if you use a bank login as an email as a bank login, to use something like Proton Mail, because to be able to get into that, to get into your email is actually a lot more difficult than something like Gmail. I would never use something like Gmail for anything secure, to be honest. I use my Gmail account for like games, and that's about it. Like if I need to log into game servers, I use my Gmail account. That's usually about it. I'll use other things, or my own secure email to be able to log into things that are important. Request the data under new California law. Are you talking about the privacy law? We were just talking about that earlier. We live in California. I have not requested my data. No. All right, have a good one, Wes. The CCPA. Is that the one we were just... let me see. Let me see if it's the same one. California Consumer Privacy Act. This is different, right?
I think that's the one you were thinking of.
It might have been. Background on the CCPA and rulemaking process. I don't care about that. Oh, this is part of 2020. Civil Code, Division 3 obligations. Consumers shall have the right to request that a business that collects consumer personal information disclose to the consumer that the categories and specific pieces of personal information and information the business has collected. A business that collects a consumer's personal information shall, at or before the point of collection, inform consumers as to the categories. Yes, this is what I was talking about earlier. Yes. I wasn't sure what it was called, but this is what I was talking about. Of personal information to be collected and the purposes for which the categories of personal information shall be used. A business shall not collect additional categories of personal information or use personal information collected for additional purposes without providing the consumer with notice consent with this action. That's why the little thing at the bottom of the screen pops up and says, do you blah, 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 accept the cookies? Just exit out of that. There's no reason to say okay, honestly. It's just so that they have now permission to do whatever they were doing before, and they are now abiding by the law. A business that receives a verifiable consumer request from a customer to access personal information shall promptly take steps to disclose and deliver free of charge to the customer. The personal information required by this section... The information may be delivered by mail or electronically, and if provided electronically, the information shall be in a portable and, to the extent technically feasible, readily usable format that allows the consumer to transmit this information to another entity without hindrance. A business may provide personal information to a customer at any time, but shall not be required to provide personal information to a customer more than twice in a 12-month period. But this doesn't protect you from anything. This just says that you have access to know what somebody knows.
Yeah, yeah, there's no protection in it to, that's why I said the right to be forgotten, because that's the only one where you have, like, an actually actionable thing.
Right. So I guess this is usable in the sense that says, if I know this company is taking information from them, I may not use them anymore. But then again, it may be too late. There's part at the end that opens up companies to litigation for lax security. But what's the point? At that point, it's too late, isn't it?
I mean, if they get an order, or if it's part of the settlement, and they're like, well, you have to fix it. But yeah, basically, it's too late.
It's too late.
Because by the time that it goes to the justice system, it'll be about 4 years later anyway.
Well, by the time it's being reported, it's probably because somebody took that information unknowingly, or without them knowing, or without permission.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So they wrote this up for why? To make people feel protected?
Yeah. It was probably one of those concession things that I get so riled up about, how people are moderate in politics because they have to get things done.
So this was
Hey look, we're looking out for you.
This was
But
just a
also,
cookie
we're looking
to
out
keep
for
somebody satisfied? So indirectly it has protection stuff in it, potentially. Yeah, I mean, I guess the point is to possibly scare companies into being more secure. But, I mean, if you get hacked, you get hacked, and it's too late anyway. So again, this should shed more light on you as a consumer, as you as a user of the internet. Because I don't know why they use specifically. I don't know why this specifically for consumers. I guess because it's about stores and stuff, but it should be more. It should be more than that. It should be users of the internet. But this is probably lawmakers not understanding how the internet works. So this should tell you though that if you're able to see your information, or if you know what information is being taken from you or used without your necessary consent, that to be careful what you put in there. And that should go generally. Always be careful about what information you're putting in there. If you're talking about like billing information and stuff like that, I guess make sure it's a big enough company to where if they were to be hacked and a lot of people lost their information, that hopefully people would stop using their company. But then again, like that happened to Target like twice in the last like year. And that hasn't changed a damn thing. So I don't know. I don't know, man. Again, it comes down to you being careful. It's going to be you that has to take the responsibility to take these actions. And it's always going to come down to being careful and what you put into the information sections of any piece of any website. If you can do things in person, obviously you can't do this right now, but if you can do things in person, yeah, we also have to talk about the fact that convenience is more often than not a security risk. So credit cards, ATM cards, anything that's not necessarily cash is often is a potential breach of information. Now, companies like Visa and stuff like that are pretty good at protecting you, but again, it's more digital information. And since we live in a digital world, that's just kind of how it goes. So it's going to come down to, if you have something there, make sure that there's some type of layer of protection. And that comes down to if you're going to input your credit card information into let's say you're going to buy Apex coins, or you're going to do some microtransaction to get some loot boxes and stuff like that. Make sure that not only is you're doing it off your stream, but you're also maybe turning off the source so that if you accidentally switch your scene back, or it's in a corner somewhere, that by no mistake is somebody going to see that information, or somebody's going to see your address, or your billing address, or your full name, or whatever it might be. If you're going to register an LLC, which we'll talk about in a different episode, an LLC is you having a sole proprietorship in a company that protects you from... That's why I wasn't going to talk about it.
Sole proprietorship is basically the opposite of an LLC. So, makes you a limited partner, so you can't be reached. There you go. It's important.
Yep, I know. That's why I wasn't going to talk about it, because I was going to get it wrong. But when it comes to things like that, make sure that when you register those things, because you may hear, oh, I need to get an LLC. I'm making over, what is it, over 20 grand a year or something like that? 30 grand a year? I don't know. There's a certain limit at which you should be registering for an LLC. I don't know which side that is.
No matter what, honestly.
But there's a recommended amount, right?
I don't know.
I think there is. I think that's something tax people should know about, not necessarily just, you know. So when you go to do stuff like that, you can do that in a different state. You don't have to do it in the state that you live in. You can do that somewhere else, and be registered there. And if you would think that that's going to keep you more secure, I don't think there's any reason not to do that. So that is a big tip, honestly. If you're going to register an LLC, you don't necessarily have to make it your home address to make it the place of business, because, well, you're on the internet. Your place of business is everywhere. What is your top tips for streamers keeping their privacy on streaming social media? Honestly, my top tip is unless you have to, nobody needs to know your name. My name, unfortunately, and I guess fortunately, is public, so people know my name. It's printed on books that a lot of streamers have now. If you don't need a name out there, nobody needs to know your name, don't give it to them. They don't need it. We ran into something recently. I won't say what it is because it's still NDA'd. But they asked me, they wanted my full name. They wanted to put on my full name, which obviously I didn't have a problem with because that's already known. But they wanted my full name. They want to put that up there. They wanted my occupation if I had one outside of streaming, which I think personally is a problem. And again, personally to me, it wasn't a problem because I don't have another one. But they also asked for basically a sub count, like how much money you made, and certain amounts of other things that was just like, these are points of information you don't need. And I said that to them. I was like, this is information that is actually private and you shouldn't need to know. Can we skip over that? And thankfully, the producer I was talking to was very okay with that, but they will ask these questions and often it's not because they want to take advantage of you. It's often because a lot of people, especially not necessarily fully, you have to be like, there's like a little bubble of the industry here, right? We're in the gaming industry in total, but there's a little bubble in the industry of content creation. And a lot of people who are not in that bubble specifically don't know all the things that they shouldn't be asking. They don't really know the mores and you know, things that the taboos and things you shouldn't be asking about and talking about. By asking somebody their specific sub count is almost literally asking them how much money they make, which it's not the same question, which is why it doesn't come off and doesn't spark in the brain that way. But it very much is that information, right? Not everybody makes all their money off of subs, but it's pretty close. You're able to, you know, ballpark how much they make. So all that information that is not public, and you can tell because it doesn't show anywhere that you don't say something about it, you don't need to say, ever. Don't feel obligated to say that. Your name, your address, state. Hell, you don't even have to say what country you're in if you don't want to. That's going to be harder to mask, but you don't have to say it, right? Somebody can guess these things. Hey, are you an American? I don't really say where I live, but you can make your assumptions if you like, based on my accent or whatever it might be. And you know, it may come off, as long as you say it in a polite way, it should be okay. It's like, hey, I had some problems with security before, or maybe you didn't have problems with security before, but hey, I'm really protective over my own security, so I don't really talk about those things. I hope you understand. Like that if somebody's of sound mind, they probably won't mind that you said something like that. They're just genuinely curious. And it's like, hey, I know you're curious. I really would love to tell you, but I really don't want to have my privacy broken. I don't want to have my privacy breached, so I just don't talk about those things. You don't have to make it a big deal. That would be my second tip. Don't make it a big deal, because then people will go looking for things, because if you tell people not to look at it, what do? They look at it, right? I was just watching Inception. They were talking about that. If I tell you not to think about an elephant, what do? Well, think of an elephant, right? That's not how Inception works. So incept into their mind that they don't need to know that information. By not talking about it. It's the same thing that goes with controversial topics on Twitter or whatever it might be. Somebody's being a dick on Twitter and you're sitting there going, I hate this guy. This guy should not be talking about blah, 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 blah. What are you doing? You're publicizing their negativeness or their hateful, the thing that you hate about them. You're making it even more public. It's the same thing with your personal information. By you not saying anything means that it's going to get less attention. And when it comes to your personal information, that's exactly what you want, right? So when it comes to, if somebody's asking in chat, hey, where you live? You can ignore them. They might ask again. Hey, where do you live? If they don't get it by the third time, well, it's probably going to come down to they really just want to know where you live, and that's a problem. So you may want to just get rid of it. Don't be afraid to ban people that are putting out information. If somebody puts like the correct information or the incorrect information, this is where you need to be consistent, all right? If somebody puts an address in chat, whether it's yours or not, I would recommend banning it. Whether it's the person or the message, deleting the message, get it out of chat, right? Be consistent with this. If there's a phone number, get rid of it. Unless it's like the suicide hotline or something like that. Get rid of it. Because if you don't, and you only get rid of the stuff that is actually true, somebody's going to know they got it right. Right? Just get rid of all of it. Get rid of all of it. Something I've learned from Hunter, actually, is to put in your banned words, like your personal information. The only problem I have with that is a good way to test to whether or not they have it right, too. So what I would do is I would put a bunch of different variations in there. You know? Like 4-digit codes of something as far as like a wide range of things, right? A wide range like 4065 Turquoise Avenue. 4065 Turkov Avenue. 4007 Turquoise Avenue. Like, change it, just put a bunch of them in there. I promise you right now, if you take an hour or just take a full day to do this, take your day off and just spend like, I don't know, 4 hours just doing a bunch of this and all your information. Just put it all in there. If you're going to, you have to do it right, because you either do it right or you don't do it at all. Because if you do it half-assed, it will be worse, in my opinion. But take a bit of time, put a bunch of different variations that may be close. Even if it looks like an address, get it banned, right? Get it out of there. But always, if somebody puts information in there that looks like an address, looks like a phone number, get rid of it. Always just get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. Train your mods to do the same thing. Because whether or not it's right or wrong, nobody will know, right? So if you just ban everything, you make it part of your rule set, nobody will know whether or not they got it right. Hopefully they got it wrong and you've still banned it, and then they think they're right, and then hopefully that throws them off the trail. Wrong information and right information, exactly. Right way would... You guys hear that? It's Call of Duty outside, man. I don't know. It's like a helicopter right above us. What? It's bombers. The raid siren.
There's no way a bomber would get close to us if they were gonna bomb us.
No, obviously I'm joking. What was that? It was a helicopter of some sort. I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's a news chopper. They're like, well, what's more social distancing than us being in the air in a helicopter?
With 5 other people in our helicopter.
It's usually only like 2 or 3, but yeah. We'll just be up in the air in this enclosed space. What other tips? What other major tips? Google alerts. I know that people don't you don't have to Google yourself all the time because you don't want to make a profile or anything for your actual personal information. But Google alerts are important too. Your first and last name, a Google alert. I have one for mine. Never had any. I've had one thing pop up from my name, and it was somebody releasing an article about me or something like that. But I have a lot of people, a lot of drug dealers, a lot of human traffickers, some sports stars that pop up in my name. Google alert. Maybe I need to look into that. But those things pop up. Put together some Google alerts so that like you get a notice in your email saying, "Hey, this is what was shown up in our search today." A bunch of Christian ministers, yeah. I die a lot, actually. I have a lot of deaths. I may be a cat, but yeah, there's people with my name who die like once a month or something like that. But I have a very common first and last name. That's my shield of armor. Is both my first and last name are very popular. My name is not unique in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, there's a lot of me. So it feels pretty okay. I wish, yeah. I mean, it's good and bad. It's good for security. It's bad for recognition. I don't think there's anybody in SAG with my name though, thankfully. So if I do end up joining SAG, I think I'll be okay. Use secure passwords on everything you do. Passwords are very easy to be hacked, especially if you use the same one in many different websites, because it only takes one. It only takes one to be insecure for you to have that. So using a password manager for the sole purpose of having different passwords is probably one of the most useful things you can have. We listed a bunch of them earlier. I would use one of them. Make sure they're encoded and secure. And that goes for like game passwords and logins too, like Paradox or Epic or Steam or any of that. Make sure to use different logins and passwords. They often have two-factor authentication, so use those as well. But yeah, using different passwords, hell, even different logins if you want, with different emails, and say, hey, this is that email, whatever. That's a fine idea too. Obviously, it's a lot to take care of and a lot to keep track of, but still, it is. The more complicated something is, the more secure it is. Unfortunately, sometimes it's secure from yourself too, which becomes its own issue. Unique that worries you? It's not that big of a deal. It's just a little. It's like another extra layer or something. Have I been pwned? Legit. What else? What do you guys suggest? Any suggestions out there? I would change my name publicly if it was not such a searchable thing to do. Oh yeah. Yeah, you almost have to do it illegally so that nobody knows. I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting to do anything illegal. I would never do that. It's a website that looks for your passwords? Really? Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a thing. Yeah, ever since I was hacked like 3 or 4 years ago, I've made sure to keep all my passwords different and encrypted. So there's that. Anyway, I think we've covered a lot today. We had a lot of good conversation today. We talked about the California Consumer Privacy Act. We talked about the other Privacy Act, the Federal Privacy Act. We've talked about tips and tricks and how to keep yourself secure. We've talked about how my cat's gonna probably ruin all my equipment. We've talked about passwords. We've talked about servers. We've talked about VPNs. We've talked about virtual computers. We've talked about our virtual machines, rather. We've talked about the fact that it's not a matter of if you're going to be hacked or compromised. It's a matter of when. So do your best to make sure that when that happens, it's minimized and only one thing is being taken advantage of, and hopefully that thing can be reversed. But as long as you think about it constantly, it's about when and not if. You'll be as protected as possible. Again, we've talked about going to your police station. We've talked about the fact that if you just give somebody a challenge, more than likely they'll give up. So do something. Taking any type of action is 100 times better than taking no action. So do that, please. What else? I think that's it, right? My cat loves to fight with cables in your setup. And dude, my cat pushes on my power button. Hunter knows about that. Eris likes the power button, doesn't she? Hankara, do you like the power button? Do you want to say bye to everybody? Nope, she does not. She's ready for food. Only the casting rig? Mine is the gaming rig, thankfully. Because that means my stream doesn't go down. Just whatever game I'm playing. Yeah. Yeah. I think we covered it. I think we did it. We did it, boys and girls. We did it. Screwed mine to the underside of the desk. You can't... Oh, that's a good idea. She hasn't done it since we moved to even our last location. She hasn't done it, but she has done it before that. Now she has a different way to come bother me. No, thank you guys. Thanks for listening. I know that often it is difficult to and boring to just sit here and be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. He's talking about not video games. And if he doesn't talk about video games soon, I'm gonna be pissed and I'm gonna blah 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 blah. But there's a lot of you in here that understand how important this information is, and personally, y'all are better than the rest of them. Because at least you're taking an extra step to better yourself. And it doesn't matter how you do it. The fact that you do something about it is what matters. Very, very soon, we're going to get more guests on. We've done one show with guests, and I'd like to do more. One of these weeks, maybe Wes and Rini will decide to do a double header, and they'll be on their show and my show. We'll talk about moderation, and we could talk about how mods can very much help keep people secure, because it's one of those things that's a very fine line of how much do you trust your moderator, right? Obviously, when it comes to like people like Wes and stuff like that, you're like, oh, I've met him, we've hung out, we've spent time together, I've actually grown a friendship and trust with him. I can give him my personal information so that if he sees it, he knows things have been compromised and it's more eyeballs out there. Obviously, the more you let out, the more insecure it is, but there's all kinds of things that happen like that. So yeah, maybe we'll have that conversation, because that conversation is sticky. And you never know when that conversation will come up with you and your mods. You never know when somebody might want to take over and actually become a problematic mod. That happens a lot. I've had one mod that is, well, now it's been like 3 or 4 mods that have stuck around for a very long time, but we've had many mods that have come and gone very quickly. But yeah, it'd be a good one. Yeah, I think it does. It does happen. It does. It very much does. It very much does. I've had several mods that have been very problematic. But I've had about 4 or 5 mods that have been pretty much hard gunning to keep everything smooth for about 3 years now, which has been great. I actually haven't added a mod in a long time. We might need a new mod for our day streams, because gamer technology of Australia does not be alive during our day streams, because, well, it's like the middle of the night for him in Australia. All right, guys, we're gonna get out of here. I want to say thank you so much for watching today. If you're new to the channel, drop a follow. This stream goes live twice a week for 4 different shows. You have on Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific, Hunter. You have the stream scene with Hunter and Loco. They often have two guests on where they talk about the current status of whatever is happening in the Twitch world, or they're talking about video games. They're talking about a topic that is interesting to streamers. And then after that, you have Your Brand, Your Business with Warbnull and Chickenators and your lawyer, my lawyer friend. His name's Noah. I always call him Noah. I always forget if it's your lawyer friend or my lawyer friend. It's my lawyer friend, isn't it? Those three together talking about your brand, your business. They just talked about taxes, which is important, especially with the new changes and all this COVID stuff going on. Warbnull is currently doing my taxes, so that'll be fun. And then on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Pacific, is it 2 hours long or is it 1 hour long, Wes? You have behind the streams, right? Did I get that right? We have two amazing mods who often have a guest on or two talking about moderation and what happens on behind the scenes. Behind the streams, behind the scenes. I didn't just figure that out. I absolutely did not just figure that out. And then right after that is this show. Right here. On twitch.tv/StreamerSquare. Every Tuesday. 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. You can also follow us on Twitter at StreamerSquare. I think it's just regular, it's just StreamerSquare. And then you have discord.gg/StreamerSquare. And if you'd like to catch up on VODs and highlights and stuff, youtube.com/user/StreamerSquare. So go check those out. And if you have any questions, ask. Please don't be afraid. Just ask. I've been Dan, and this is Dan's Stream of Thought. I will catch you guys all next week. And if you feel like watching my stream, I'll be on in about like 2 hours, two and a half-ish hours. We're going to be playing some video games with some friends. Faye, if you'd like to join us, you're more than welcome to. We'll be playing with Tank Pig and GameSpike and all those guys. So, with that being said, I love you. Remember to stay positive, play more video games, and read more comics. And this has been yet another episode of Dan's Stream of Thoughts. Stream of Thought. Oh my god, I need to go to bed or something. I'll see you all next time, okay? Stay safe. Stay inside! You dorks. Stay inside. Jeebs. See you guys. Bye!